guys, how are you all doing this evening? Thanks guys, yeah, I'm actually back in Norway now, and I must say it was quite a trip and quite an experience to to experience the airports with almost no people at all. And when we got back to Norway, we were actually met by the National Guard and told to go straight into quarantine for 14 days. So I'm basically not allowed to leave my house. So this is gonna be quite interesting. Thank you so much for the super chat, CJ. Is the echo gone now, guys? Thank you so much for the super chat, Frank. Oh, hello. Thank you so much for the super chat, John.
To help to pay for the new monitor.
Yeah, the truth is, guys, when I actually got home, I realized that my 10-year-old monitor is now kind of playing its last string. So I had to turn it off like multiple times, and yeah, it was giving it the kind of the nudge to activate the whole screen, because I had like, it was approximately 90% black and a lot of stripes. But eventually it came around and kind of works right now. But yeah, I definitely am going to be in desperate need of a new one if I am going to continue to edit. What else is it to tell about the trip yesterday? It was quite interesting. We were supposed to go from Orlando directly to Newark, but that United Airlines flight was cancelled like hours before or day before we were supposed to leave. So I was kind of frantic on the telephone with the airline company to find another solution for the trip back home. And so it ended with, instead of leaving at 12 or noon, we had to catch a flight that was leaving at 7 in the morning, and had to go to Houston and have 2.5 hours there before we then flew over to Newark to catch our initial flight over to Europe. So that was quite an interesting ride. Thank you so much for the super chat, Rob. And when we got to Newark, that was fairly easy. The airport was completely empty, and the security point, the TSA point we walked through, which usually is like really full and just crazy, it was empty. It was completely empty. There were just 4 security guys there, and yeah, it was a really strange experience. And in Europe, yeah, in Sweden, we landed at Arlanda, and that's just outside of Stockholm. And the airport was ice cold. I don't think they even turned up the heat, considering that the amount of people going through there would be really much less. So yeah, so the body heat of all the people that usually are going through there wasn't there, and so it was really cold. So we had a transit time there of 8.5 hours, and basically just sitting there and freezing for 8.5 hours because we could not leave the airport. And back in Norway, met by the National Guard, everything was okay. And from Oslo, it was a short flight over to Bergen, and then yeah, just driving the car home basically. Yeah, that was actually the flight back from Orlando. Even though I wish I could stay there for the next 2 weeks, which I was intentionally going to do, but things kind of turned crazy over there. Frank, I'm not sure if Sweden has borders open still, but I can tell you for sure that Norway has locked its borders, and you can only get into this country if you have a legal residency or are a Norwegian citizen. And yeah, if you cross the border and come back in, you are straight into 14 days of quarantine. And the weird thing about this quarantine that I'm in right now is that I'm not even allowed to go to the store. So I have to have all my food and grocery shopping and everything delivered to me by some friends, and they have to just leave it on a porch and I have to carry it in. So no contact whatsoever. Kathy, yeah, I'm actually really happy to be back home, because, to be honest, the situation in the United States was really starting to scare me. And I really don't want to like talk the States down, but my experience from the news, from the actions, and from the people involved, I must say that it's right now a country without leadership. Everything is basically happening on a state level, and no one is there's just no common consensus or like direction that everyone is going in simultaneously. Every state is basically doing what they feel like is the right thing to do, with some guidance from the federal government. And it's just like, you guys really need to work out communication and unity. That's something you really need to work out over there. Herr de Bourgeois, yeah, you're completely right, and I'm really glad you guys are here, because you guys are going to keep me sane for the next 2 weeks. No, this is not a night train. What you see on the screen right now is a train that usually leaves in the morning. I think this was train 1805, so it leaves from Voss at 7:20-ish, and it goes to Bergen. So this is a commuter train. Hi, Corey. Yeah, actually, there was no coherent strategy, and that is kind of scary if you are the president and you are supposed to lead a whole republic, and you have a bunch of states that does not do or act in the same way, or the worst thing, if you have a federal leadership that actually downplays the seriousness of this virus and just like, no, everything is okay, we got like just 15 cases, and in about 2 weeks there will be like 0. And that speech actually scared the living daylight out of me when I got the news and I was watching the news from Europe. It was like, oh, this is really going down over there, and you have a president who actually downplays everything. Dude, you need to do something, act now. Yeah, I actually find it kind of weird. I really don't want to discuss politics or anything, but when it comes to a pandemic like this, I think that everyone should transcend politics. I mean, this is like beyond politics, because this is basically, it affects absolutely every living human being on this planet. And if we are not able to act as a species against these threats,
Glad you're
I
safe,
mean,
RCG. Heart.
what do we actually have left? What do we actually have left when we're unable to take care of our own species, when we are challenged with a spread like this? It's just mind-boggling. Kathy? Yep. Even though things were like they were, I had a ton of good times, and I was I actually felt safe where we were in Deland, because we were just a small group of people. We had been hanging out with each other all the time since we arrived. So yeah, it was actually great. So most scary thing about everything was actually the trip home, because we had to go through airports. We were on crowded flights, except for the United flights inside the States. Those were almost completely empty, but the last flight for SAS out of Newark, it was full. It was crammed. So back home, feeling healthy, tired, have a small headache because I haven't been sleeping much for the past 2 days when I was traveling, but had a 14-hour sleep today, so hopefully I'm gonna be a-okay and back to normal by tomorrow. I not sure, but can you guys confirm that the echo is gone? Excellent, no echo. I guess I am going to. I will have to use some time to get over the jet lag, but with 2 days on travel with almost no sleep at all, I think we had at one flight I was able to sleep like for an hour or something. So I think because of that, I might have cheated the jet lag, but we'll see. Either I will wake up approximately about 2 a.m. or something tonight, or yeah, I'm going to be awake until 5 a.m. and go to sleep then. Ed Hilton, when it comes to the extended delay on the return, yeah, they are okay with it. I was actually not supposed to come back home before in about 2 weeks, so my planned return to Norway was actually scheduled for April 14th, and then I would also have to go into quarantine, but as it seems, our company is going to reduce every train driver's work with 15% instead of like laying off a bunch of people. Everyone is taking 15% reduction of work time and thus also salary. So yeah, the whole country is affected by it. The unemployment rate in Norway, I thought the latest number was about 4,000 or something right now. So it is severe. What's going on is really affecting absolutely everyone. Affects all businesses. When it comes to Norway, one of our largest sectors is tourism. So they employ a lot of people and really struggling right now, so I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future, but at some point I guess that things can start to open like slowly, and gradually we will start to take our lives back. But hopefully we learn something from this whole experience. Nation would need their us. That every nation would have to understand on everyone else. This is also fighting the same problems simultaneously. Marian Boudreau? Yeah, I'm not kind of stuck at home, but I have been put into a mandatory quarantine for 2 weeks. Thank you so much for the super chat, Gerv.
Welcome back HCG Folded Hands.
Winkle, yeah, 15% is actually quite significant, but it's better that everyone takes like 15% less compared to having like hundreds of train drivers who will have no work or pay at all. So yeah, this kind of solitary solution to absolutely everything, and everyone is kind of bearing the load, and hopefully when everything is starting to turn back to normal and people are starting to go back to work, there will be more trains running again. The Bergen line will be running minimum service with just I think it's 2 departures a day between Oslo and Bergen, and they are reducing the amount of trains going from Voss to Bergen. The Flom line is probably going to run winter production all summer. That means less carriages and not dual train operation, but they're going to do single train operation instead. The worst hit part of the country is probably Oslo when it comes to train density, amount of passengers and stuff like that. So every train company in Norway is going to have to try to kind of share the load between all drivers so that everyone is actually able to keep their jobs. Clear for Port KO1? No, I have actually not been surprised by any, let's call it, foreign objects in the tunnels in my career, basically because people do not walk into tunnels in this country. Yeah, the tunnels here are quite narrow, and most people know that walking into it's a very stupid thing to do, and it's kind of weird, but animals also tend to think that walking into a very dark hole is also a very stupid thing to do. But animals I have observed in tunnels are usually birds, and these are in the short tunnels. The birds usually seek refuge just inside the opening. But for shorter tunnels, which you basically can see both ends from, I have encountered foxes. And in the tunnel just before Ustaosa, I know that there's actually a foxhole in that tunnel, because every time I go through there, I have actually seen the fox like curling up between the tunnel wall and the rail. So yeah, nature in the tunnel. Samuel K, you wanted to know how fast we are actually going in the Finse tunnel. The maximum speed in the Finse tunnel is 160 kilometers per hour or 100 miles per hour. Usually you don't need to run at those speeds, and during the winter time we really have to excuse me for a minute. I really have to take the speed into consideration, and the temperature inside, and how much ice and snow that is on the undercarriage of the train. Because going into a tunnel like that and driving at speeds at 160 kilometers per hour, something happens to the pressure inside the tunnel. So if you have a lot of icing under the train, this is going to be whipped loose by the pressure differences and the winds, and that snow and ice will be tossed up along the tunnel walls and get thrown back onto windows on the side of the train. So there was actually a train here before I left for the States that got almost all their windows smashed because of flying ice and everything in the tunnel. So yeah, that's kind of interesting and kind of scary too. But one has to take those speeds and what it does to the air around you in tunnel with consideration for how you actually operate the train. God påske til deg også, Klaus. Mudshark, yeah, there will be some videos from that trip, which I will post. Theresa, they don't need to de-ice the tracks. The tracks don't usually get a lot of snow sticking onto it, but except for the normal snow that comes down and lays over the track, but you don't need to de-ice the track. You just need to keep the track heads clear of snow when it comes to the amount of snow that is kind of, yeah. Not sure how I'm going to put this into words, but you have to just make sure that there is not so much snow that it can actually stop the train physically. So we do have a plow on the train that clears the track, and they also do send rotaries and plow trains in front of us depending on how much it's snowing and how much wind there is. GS Winslow, yeah, you can experience that if you don't have a pressure equalization system on the train, and I'm not sure if the older TGVs are equipped with it or the newer one, but our Flirts and the L18 and the Class 73 and Class 71, they are actually overpressurized inside, so we actually do have a pressure equalization system that prevents us from popping our ears. The old Class 69 was quite horrible to working on if you actually had sinus problems and went in and out of these narrow tunnels. So yeah, old Class 71, Class 69 did not have pressure equalization systems. Gamer Nerd, I'm so glad you like my channel. Z2014, yeah, it is actually best for me to stay in quarantine, and to say it this way, if I wasn't imposed a mandatory quarantine when I passed the border, I would actually make sure that I did not interact with other people for the next 2 weeks, just to make sure that I myself don't pass any infection on to others if I actually have it or have got it, or yeah, what else. One cannot be too sure, so staying home for 14 days, yeah, I'm gonna survive it. Michael Carrier, those small white dots, those lights you see on the tunnel walls, they are actually there in the case of evacuation. So with the new mandatory technical upgrades of the tunnels, they will install rail lights like that. So in the case of an emergency, where we would have to evacuate the train and just walk to the nearest exit, those lights are supposed to work with or without power. So yeah, those are actually emergency lights. In addition to those lights, there are also signs, I think it's every 50 meter, that tells you that where the nearest exit is and how far it is to the
I am relieved you made it home. That is
nearest
great.
exit. Thank you so much for the super chat, that guy.
Avstigning høyre side. På grunn av kort plattform vil noen dører forbli avstengt. Følg anvisning på informasjonsskjermene.
Bulkmaster 3, when it comes to request stops like that, we never pass them at 100 kilometers per hour. We are obligated to make sure that we are actually able to stop the train if someone is standing there and waiting. So we reduce the speed to the point where we know that we'll actually be able to stop, and if we see that there's no one there, then and you have reached the passing time, then you just increase the speed up to line speed again. MH? No. Thankfully, we have not experienced that anything has kind of like fallen down from the roof or rock slides or stuff like that in the tunnels. The reason for this is that the tunnels are on what shall we call inspection schedule, so they rotation, so they do inspect the tunnels even every now and then on a regular basis. And as train passes through and stuff like that, if we see any irregularities on our trips, and believe me, we notice stuff like that, because when you drive through a tunnel like day after day after day after day, and sometimes several times a day, you start to notice all these standard things, and if something is not how it is supposed to be, we call it in. And when we call it in, they actually ask the next train to reduce their speed to check it out, or in other cases, they actually send out an inspection team to go through the tunnel and check it. That guy, are you still having problems hearing me over the train in the background? And fan man, how I like my internet speed now that I'm back home. It's like, oh, how much I have actually missed a working internet, because the internet we had at the house we were staying, it was so bad.
Neste stasjon er Dale.
This one, that tunnel is like really long, and here's kind of a funny story about that tunnel. It is actually called Trollkona, and a direct translation from that to English would actually mean the troll's wife.
Avstigning høyre side.
David Marsh, no, sadly, if the overhead wire hadn't been there, this train would not be able to run, because it is a 100% electric train. We don't have any backup for power or diesels on this train, so if the power disappears, heat and or traction also disappears. But we do have battery packs on these trains that will power emergency lighting and stuff like that for the duration of the power out. But thankfully, that is kind of seldom. Where, yeah, power failure is not very common. The reason for that is that there's a redundancy. We don't use just one power source in the line. We use multiples. So if one fails, they are actually able to connect other power stations to feed that section that has lost power. So thankfully, redundancy. It's a key thing when it comes to railroad. Rasvan Andrei, this is from Norway, and what you are watching right now is a video that I recorded, I think it was in December, and it is the commuter train that goes from Voss to Bergen on the Bergen line in Norway. That guy, no, the brakes does not come on if there's a loss of power, basically because that would not be very efficient, to be honest. If we lose the power and we see that the power is out for quite some time, we have to reduce the speed to on site. And if the power doesn't come back, yeah, at some point we eventually have to stop. So if the power don't come back, we actually do stop to check. But there are always communication between us and our department or the train controller, and it's the oversight, or she has the oversight of everything that is going on. So there's always an answer and estimate of how long it will take before the power is back. In other cases where you actually tear down the catenary, or catenary as it is called, then things are getting quite more hairy. Especially if you are way up in the mountains without any access roads. What they usually do then is to send a rescue train, which is diesel powered, and they will be sent up to where we are, and then we just transfer all the passengers over to the train, or they can send a rescue train and pull us into a section that actually has power that works. Bean, if this conversation was recorded yesterday, how can I be talking to you right now, Bean? Can you hear me, Bean? See you later, Jose. Gurvinder, the summer stream is not working right now, and the reason for that is that stream was actually running on this computer. So to do this stream, I had to take the other stream down. And as I said before I left for the States, that the summer stream would be was supposed to be a 6-week thing when I was over there training, but since I'm back home, I'm definitely going to need this computer to do other stuff, so there will only be one stream as standard from now on until I can get another computer to add more streams. Epic 210. This is recorded on the Bergen line in Norway, and right now we are entering Stanghelle station. This is a commuter train, and it is still early morning, and you can see the sun starting to get up there in the distance. And this was recorded in December.
Avstigning høyre side.
Dr. Obvious, trolls are trolls. It's an international thing, and when you get trolled, even though it's on the internet or it is in real life, it's still a troll. Sandbag? Yeah, they actually do. These trains are actually rolling as smooth as you see in these videos. Leif Hansen, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because the winter this year has been basically on and off, and this recording was one of the few days this winter there were actually some snow on the tracks, so yeah, it has been a very, very weird winter. You're welcome, Santibag. Naomi, I'm actually unable to see your comments. Have you said anything? Just kidding. I can actually see your comments, but there might be some that I have kind of missed because this chat has been quite fast and I have basically not been able to keep up to speed. If you did ask a question, could you please say it again or ask it again? MH, you said something about contacts are carbon and natural. Yeah, the contact or the piece that is in contact with a catenary above is actually a carbon graphite composite. So it's pretty fragile, or not kind of like super fragile, but it is conductive. And it is working, so, and not too soft and basically not too hard either. Basically a component that works perfectly for what it was made for. This part you actually see here is one of the most beautiful spots on the Bergen line. From the previous station, Stanghelle station, when you run into that station and from there to the next station, which is called Vaksdal, it is super beautiful. Mr. UK Sergeant, those two tunnels goes into a super secret alien military base. Just kidding. Those tunnels are actually dug out to be the housing for the power source for the railway. So inside those tunnels, there is a rotating generator which converts the power from the power line that comes from the power station goes into that rotating generator and converts it from the outside power, which could be a three-phase 38 to 50 kilovolts, and down to 16 kilovolts to 16 2/3 hertz, which is basically two phases gone, so 33.33333 hertz. Nab GC, or will you actually spell your nick? No, these tunnels never actually cave in. They are dug out from solid mountains, so there are of course weak spots in every mountain, but if there are weak spots in a tunnel, you can actually see that those spots has been reinforced with concrete arches and or brick arches to make it stronger. At some points you can also see that they have been drilling bolts into the mountain to kind of anchor the loose rocks into the solid mountain. So yeah, there are numerous ways how to secure the tunnels, and they are maintained and inspected on schedule, so yeah, everything kind of works. If I return home after each shift, most times I actually do, but sometimes when we are running the long haul, we do the flom line, we can be during the summer we are away for a week at a time. That's especially when we run the flom line. Then we're basically temporarily based in Flom, and we go up and down the goat elevator every day, and after a week we return home, have a longer time off, and then we go back or we do other things on the main line. On the trips, there are some trips that go to Oslo from all that you actually can do in one day, but yeah, but usually on the long hauls we have to stay over. And Fanman, actually, everything I know about these trains is, and the technical aspect around it is actually part of the education we have for train drivers here in Norway. And there's actually a good reason for this. If you know, and this has to do with security and for safety in general, if you know the reason for a rule and why that rule is actually written that way, then you know how things work behind it, then you actually respect the rule. And as long as you know how things work, it is also easier to understand the rules. There's also more easy to remember the rules because you actually know how things work. So that's why Norway has opted for a very comprehensive education of their drivers, because then they will know how to act in every situation and to pinpoint line failures or things that are in kind of in motion, like if you see like short circuiting between from the isolator on the catenary mast, and you see that you have a short circuitry when you come over there with the train. You see some electricity just basically jump over to the other side where it's not supposed to be, then you know that you have actually a malfunctioning isolator, and that is something that we would report because it's not normal, and we know that that thing is supposed to isolate the electricity away from the catenary mast. Mohammed Jamil, no, this train is not automatic. The closest thing to automation we actually have on our trains in Norway is cruise control. Ben Winkle, I think Streamlabs are having some problems with the heist minigame. And it's been lasting for a couple of days, and I think they're working on it because I am actually not able to access the control panel for that module at the moment. So yeah, I guess they're working on it. GS Winslow, cruise control for our trains here in Norway works basically just like a cruise control in a car. So we just move a needle on the speedometer. Oh, I am actually unable to talk today. Just move the needle to the speed we want the train to move on, and let's say at this part we are running on right now, the top speed here is 70 kilometers per hour. So we just set the needle to 70, and the train will basically keep 70 kilometers per hour no matter what. If it's like downhill, uphill, doesn't matter, it will keep that speed at any time until we tell it to reduce or increase the speed. Large, thank you, and I am really glad to be back home, and I'm actually really glad to being able to these chats again because I think they're awesome. Big Al 268. Our schedule is 6 week. It lasts for 6 weeks, so there's kind of week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have a base set of duties on each day for those 6 weeks. So our shift plan is set up with a total of 220 hours, if I'm not mistaken, that we're supposed to work for during those 6 weeks. So that means that I am driving a certain set of train on, let's say, every Monday, every 6th week, if you understand what I mean. So we actually know how our whole year is going to be before we apply for a new plan. But there can be changes in those times and in duties during that time, which we will basically know a month before they actually happen. About Trengereid, then you actually know more than me, because I actually did not know that the term reid is an Old Norse term, meaning a place where the sea is separated from a freshwater lake. That I actually didn't know. But what lake would that be at Trengereid? Because it's part of a fjord. And not sure if there is any fresh water bodies close by. Kathy, I actually really... This is horrible. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I actually missed that again. But now I'm actually going to answer it. What I'm going to be doing during the quarantine. Basically, hopefully I'm going to do some footage for the channel. Probably doing some videos from... I did record a lot before I left, so there are some videos there I can do. I'm also going to be making some skydiving videos, and hopefully I am going to have a lot of time to do gaming streams. So yeah, you're probably going to see more of me during these 2 weeks than ever before, actually. Alan Palomares, no, we actually don't see any bats in these caves. I'm not sure if there are any bats in these caves or tunnels. I don't think it would be a very good habitat for them because of the trains running in and out. And yeah, so the air in the tunnel actually get pushed in front of the train, so the wind coming out of the tunnel will have the same speed as the train inside of it. So not an ideal place for a bat to hang out. RSDT25NOR, I'm actually doing fine, thank you. I just got home yesterday, so this is day 1 of my Coronatine. Lars Gunnar, haha, I see what you did there. Mudshark, no, I have actually not done that because going to Oslo and take the train from there to other parts of Norway actually takes quite a bit of time, but I have some plans for this year I think that you guys are going to really appreciate, and as soon as I get out of this quarantine, things might happen. Hulkmaster 3, how long it will take for a train to do emergency stop from 100 kilometers per hour? Ooh, that is actually quite a good question. That has a lot of factors into it, because it actually depends on the weight of the train, the power of the brakes, the adhesion or the tension or friction surface between the rail and wheels. So there's a lot of factors here into consideration we have to take into consideration. But I do have some numbers. If you travel at 210 kilometers per hour with a class 71 or class 73, you will use approximately 1200 meters to do an emergency stop on average. And that of course depends on where you actually do it. If there's if it's ascent or it is it is going downwards, yeah, there's a lot of factors you have to take into consideration to be able to stop a train. Thank you, Kathy. Shannon B, do you actually like black metal? If so, what bands? Steve Miker, if I was able to see my family before quarantine? No, I was not. I got a direct message from my boss at work that my car would be driven to the airport and parked there, and that I would have to use my own car to get back home. I wasn't even allowed to take the train or anything for obvious reasons, and that's a good measure. And seeing family, hey, there is actually FaceTime, and it would be really irresponsible of me to hug my family or seeing them in person before I actually went into quarantine, because they've been here all the time, they're not sick, and I've been abroad and I've been traveling, so that interaction could actually pass on the infection, and which I'm not sure I have or have had. So yeah, no, that would not be a good idea, but we actually have FaceTime. Copa da So, yeah, you would actually be really flat if you sat in a car and got hit by a train at 210 kilometers per hour. But there is a huge but here. When it comes to line constructions in Norway, they are now working to remove all level crossings. So instead of having a level crossing, they either build a small bridge over it, or they actually remove the road altogether and connect it to another place, or they actually build an underpass. For new railroads, they do not build them with level crossings anymore. And before all of these safety measures were actually taken, they had a rule that said that on lines with speeds that exceeds 130 kilometers per hour, you are not supposed to have any level crossings. So on high-speed lines, you will see no level crossings, and that's something I'm wondering about. And if there are any French people here or anyone with knowledge of how they do it on the high-speed lines in France, I would really like to know, are there any lines there that has speeds that exceeds 130 kilometers per hour where there are actually level crossings? Big Al 268, I'm actually considering Doom, and I saw that Steam had Resident Evil 3, and I'm actually considering that as well. Not sure if that would be something that you guys would see me playing, but I'm definitely going to do some more Train Sim World 2020, and I'm definitely going to do some Transport Fever 2 as well. Thank you so much for the super chat, Mike. Or sorry, not Mike, it's Miker, and the first name is Steve. Thank you so much for that information, Antoine. And for you too, Kalpa. So, actually, no level crossings on TGV lines. That is really good to hear. Jane Warner, you are wondering if the all or o and a is the same sound? No, it's not. As you type it flom, it's actually pronounced flom. So if you have an a with a circle over it, it's like o. So o. So it's pronounced o, and the name would be flom. And Myrdal is pronounced Myrdal with a straight A. Aquabob68, do you mean drivers here on the Bergen line, or do you mean drivers in Norway in general? Toms, I am actually a Norwegian resident, born and raised here, and I was in the States for a training camp, but that was kind of cut short, so now I'm back home, so I have been on vacation from work up until now, and now I am in quarantine before I can actually rejoin society. Yes, Winslow, yeah, you know us. It's kind of an occupational hazard, so if you drive trains, you are probably prone to do train sims as well. Actually, train sims or simulation is kind of a huge part of our education as well, especially when it comes to emergency procedures and procedures we have to go through when we get sent. What's it called? When you're allowed to do something. Please, Ben. Words are gone for me today. Hold on. Here it is, permission. The word was permission to pass a signal that is in red. So there's a lot of procedures we have to go through before we are allowed to actually do that, and there is some writing and notes on a paper and read back and everything before you're actually allowed to do that. And there's also things about the speeds and everything you're allowed to proceed with, and that is actually something we train on in simulations. Other things we've been training on in simulations are actions or reactions to things that might happen in, let's say, terrorist attack and things like that. if something happens at a station, what do we do, and how do we handle things like that if you have problems on a train? Yeah. So everything that is something you do not meet on an everyday basis, that requires more of you as a driver, we train in a simulation. So yeah, we do simulation training like that, and we also have yearly, we have to do our safety tests all over again to be allowed to drive trains. So yeah, it's quite comprehensive. We really need to keep our knowledge and competence on at a peak at all time to be able to pass. And except for everything that has to do with the rules and stuff like that to drive trains and the technical aspect, we also undergo health tests to make sure that we are actually within the requirements of our health to ride trains. So there are certain things we're not allowed to do, like drinking alcohol. We're allowed to, but not allowed to drink it 8 hours before work, and in some cases also 11 hours after staking. 6 hours after a shift if something has happened. And there could be questions about your conduct. Other things that is a totally zero tolerance for, it's drugs. So no, not allowed to do that no matter what. Meter Geyser 75. Rick Chando, the heist is not available right now, not working as intentional because Streamlabs are having some difficulties with the server, I guess. I didn't have access to the settings earlier today. I see now that they are kind of back, but not sure if it's still working or not. But I guess it will be working pretty soon, I hope. Naomi Garza, Finse is actually pronounced Finse. And Shannon B, I think I missed the message where you said which black metal bands you were into, or if you didn't write it at all, but I'm still keen, wondering what kind of bands are you into? Geyser 75, no, I'm not working as normal. Right now I am in quarantine, and after that I will have, or every driver in V will actually have a 15% reduction in their work time and pay because of the reduced amount of trains running. Kirkland? Yeah, I actually saw that that BBC had put a link to one of the streams on their page, and I was completely amazed by that, and I think that's really awesome. Antoine, I would actually, if there's a Norwegian black metal band, I would recommend Dimmu Borgir. I can type it in the channel so that you see how it is spelled, and they are awesome. Okay, people, we are now nearing the end of the stream since we are now arriving Bergen, or Bergen, as it is pronounced in Norwegian. I really thank you all for joining in today. This is the first stream since I got back yesterday, and I'm really glad to see that most of you, or everyone, hopefully, is doing okay and that you are all being responsible, staying at home. Make sure that you do not pass this virus on to anyone else. And yeah, so I will see you here again soon on a gaming stream. And in the meantime, the other stream is still up. So I will probably be joining that as well, but then in text, of course. And yeah, I guess I will see you all again here soon. So thank you everyone for joining in today, and see you again. Bye!